The laptop fan has been running for 6 hours. I notice it the way you notice a refrigerator hum, only when you've been sitting next to it too long. The screen is showing me a graph, slow, steady decline, 41 months of the same direction. I sell productivity, sold it, whatever tense applies to a channel that still exists, but that I haven't touched since October of 2020. 712,000 people subscribe to watch a man they never met. Most of them don't know I stopped. Some of them still share the videos. Last Tuesday, someone tweeted, "This guy changed my life," with a clip from 2016. The clip was about waking up at 5 a.m. and protecting the first hour of your morning. I was on 70 milligrams of Vyvanse when I filmed it, September 2013. I was 40 in March, and I was watching my channel grow, and I was running on about 4 hours of sleep, and I had this thing I called the fog. Not depression. I knew depression. This wasn't that. This was something specific. I could start editing a video, look up, and 2 hours had passed, and I had made no decisions. I'd be in the middle of a sentence I'd started speaking on camera, and I'd just trail off. Not from exhaustion, from something that felt like the bandwidth was simply unavailable. Dr. Patricia Osei was 53, board certified in psychiatry, practiced in Austin for 22 years. I had been referred by my internist. She gave me the standard adult ADHD battery, 6 different instruments, 90 minutes, no shortcuts. The diagnosis wasn't wrong. That's the part that makes the whole thing harder to hold. The diagnosis wasn't wrong. I probably had ADHD all along, and the corporate job, the structured environment, the external deadlines had masked it. Now I was alone in a home office with no structure and nothing external enforcing my attention, and it was unraveling. She prescribed Vyvanse, 40 milligrams, once daily, mornings. Lisdexamfetamine dimesylate. She explained the mechanism. She was careful. She said, "This should help with the sustained attention deficits. Come back in 4 weeks." I came back in 4 weeks and I told her it was working. It was working. By December I couldn't sleep past 1:30 a.m. I'd get up and edit for 4 hours and film for 2 and then take a Vyvanse and start the day. I told my audience I was a natural early riser. I made a video about it. The 4 a.m. advantage. 68,000 views. Dr. Osei looked at me and said, "The stimulant may be affecting your sleep architecture. I'd like to add a small dose of lorazepam, 0.5 milligram, for late afternoons, just to counteract the residual activation. Lorazepam, Ativan, 0.5 milligram. She said, "It's a very small dose, temporary." That was December 2013. By 2015, I was on 70 milligrams of Vyvanse and 1 milligram of Ativan twice a day. FDA maximum dose on the stimulant. 2 milligrams of lorazepam daily on the benzo. The combination is, there's clinical literature on this, I read it later, much later. They call it a stimulant-sedative cycle. Your brain gets pushed to its limit in one direction and then chemically pulled back in the other. The stimulant ramps up your dopamine and norepinephrine. The benzo clamps down your GABA. You're running 2 systems simultaneously that are supposed to be mutually exclusive. You're flooring the accelerator and pressing the brake at the same time and calling it driving. I want to talk about the default mode network, about what I actually took from myself. The default mode network is the brain's resting state, what activates when you're not doing anything specific. It produces daydreaming, self-reflection, creativity that isn't assigned. The mind wandering through unstructured space and making unexpected connections. It's how memory consolidates. It's how you process emotion. It's the biological substrate of meaning. Stimulants suppress the default mode network. That's part of how they work. They drive the brain toward goal-directed, focused processing and away from the resting state, which is exactly what you want if you have ADHD and need to complete a task. Which is exactly what you don't want if what you're actually doing is building a philosophy of life. I told 1.2 million people that the idle mind is a wasted mind. I filmed that video in 2014. I was on 40 milligrams of Vyvanse at the time. I had chemically eliminated my own default mode network, and I was narrating the experience as if it were achievement. The course I sold, The 16-hour blueprint, $997, was built entirely on the premise that the resting brain is the enemy, that any moment not optimized toward output is a moment surrendered. I sold that to 84,000 people across the run of that course. And what I was actually selling them was a description of a brain on pharmaceutical suppression, packaged as methodology. The Vyvanse made it possible to believe my own doctrine. You don't daydream on 70 milligrams of lisdexamfetamine. You don't lose track of your to-do list. You don't sit and stare at the ceiling wondering what any of it means. Which meant I was never confronted with the question. The drug and the brand were the same machine. One maintained the other, and neither allowed the silence in which a person might notice something was wrong. February 2018. This is the one I can't stop thinking about. I was editing a video. The title was How to Stay Productive Even When You're Exhausted. I was on hour 9 of editing. I needed to add a transition between two clips, and I sat there looking at the screen trying to remember the name of the effect. I knew what it looked like. I knew it was a word, 2 syllables. I had used it 400 times. 22 minutes. 22 minutes to retrieve the word dissolve. Not because the information wasn't there, because whatever architecture normally provides access to language, the thing that runs in background, the default mode network running its quiet filing and retrieval, had been chemically suppressed for 4.5 years. I was sitting there trying to reach into a system I had put offline. I finished the edit. I published the video. I didn't tell anyone. August 2018. Sandra found the shoebox in the studio closet. 14 empty Ativan bottles. 3 months of refills stacked on their sides like a collection. She didn't shout. She sat down on the floor of the closet and she looked at them for a long time. Then she looked at me. She said, "I don't know who you are." Not, "You have a problem." Not, "We need to talk." She said, "I don't know who you are." And the specificity of it was the thing. She wasn't angry at what I'd done. She was telling me I had become unidentifiable. She filed for separation in August. The paperwork finalized in November. By then, I had 3 simultaneous prescriptions. Dr. Alan Nguyen, my cardiologist, he's 61, he still sees me every 6 months. He added metoprolol 25 milligrams in 2017 for hypertension and chronic sinus tachycardia. 142/94, sustained. The Vyvanse had been running my cardiovascular system at a low-grade emergency for 4 years, and nobody had connected the prescriptions because they came from different physicians in different specialties, and nobody had a reason to look at all of them together. June 2019. Dr. Osei had retired in April. Her replacement, Dr. Marcus Bale, reviewed the combination and declined to continue it. He was direct about it. He said, "I can't in good conscience maintain 70 milligrams of lisdexamfetamine alongside 2 milligrams of daily lorazepam. I want to start a supervised taper." I told him I was fine. He held the line. I left his office and drove to a general practitioner in Georgetown, 27 miles, who had been writing me bridging scripts for 4 months outside the system, 1 condition at a time. He stopped in June. I ran out. I went 4 days without Vyvanse, without telling anyone. Day 4, arrhythmia, confusion. I couldn't form sentences. Sandra, we were still legally married, the divorce had stalled in paperwork. Sandra called an ambulance. St. David's Medical Center, Austin. 4 days inpatient. The discharge summary said, stimulant use disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, new onset atrial fibrillation. The atrial fibrillation is permanent. The heart doesn't undo the electrical remodeling. I take apixaban daily now, anticoagulant, because the fibrillation means clot risk. Clot risk means stroke risk. And I will take it indefinitely, or until an ablation procedure, which Dr. Nguyen and I discuss every 6 months, and which I am not yet a candidate for. That is the cardiac consequence of 6 years of stimulant-sedative cycling. My heart runs permanently out of rhythm. On a good day, the irregular beat is just a background fact, like tinnitus. On a bad day, I am acutely aware that something inside me is misfiring, and has been misfiring for 7 years and is not going to stop. The most watched video on my channel is How I Work 16-Hour Days and Still Have Energy. 1.1 million views. It is still up. I cannot take it down. I sold a content licensing deal in 2017, and the contract has another 4 years to run. The lie that will outlive everything else I made. I can see the view count from this desk. It went up by 312 views last week. Claire, my daughter, 22, stopped speaking to me in 2021. Her last message said, "You sold people a lie and called it inspiration." That is the whole message. I've read it around 200 times. I have never replied, because I don't know what I'd say that isn't a smaller version of the same lie. Ryan texts on Christmas and my birthday. 2 contact points a year, regular as a prescription refill. We're counting something there. I just don't know what. I'm on the laptop most evenings. The analytics graph runs from left to right in a slow, patient decline. 712,000 subscribers, the number frozen in 2020, and the engagement dropping underneath it as the algorithm deprioritizes content that hasn't been updated in years. The channel still earns a small amount from the old videos, enough with the copy work I do to cover the $1,140 a month for this apartment in Pflugerville. Enough to keep the prescription refills current. The moleskin is still on the desk, black cover, 16-hour blueprint, draft 3, written on the spine in my handwriting. I haven't opened it in 4 years. I haven't thrown it away either. I'm not sure what I'm waiting for. Some version of myself who will know what to do with it, maybe. Or some version who can admit that what's inside it was written by a brain running on chemistry I no longer have access to and can no longer replicate. There's a post-it on the monitor. Upload WED in red marker. I wrote it 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. Some Wednesday I thought I was going to film something. I sat down in front of the camera and I looked at the lens, and I could not locate a single true thing to say that I hadn't already said incorrectly. 7 years without Vyvanse, 6 without the ativan. The tremor in my hands, fine, bilateral now, worse on the right, is classified as residual, possibly permanent, possibly post-acute withdrawal, possibly just the nervous system after 6 years of chemical reorganization that nobody knows how to fully reverse. I don't drink coffee anymore. It makes the tremor worse. I stopped in 2020, and I still sit down to write sometimes and just wait. The thought assembles slowly, one piece at a time. The default mode network trying to run its background processes on hardware that spent 6 years being told that the resting state was the enemy. The irony is so clean it barely registers anymore. I destroyed the only part of my brain that produces meaning, and then I couldn't figure out why everything felt empty, even when the numbers were good. The fan on the laptop runs. Outside on the TX130, a car passes, and then it's quiet again. The analytics graph continues its decline in the light from the screen, patient and indifferent, logging the data on something that already ended before anyone announced it. I can't remember if I was any good before the pills. I genuinely can't locate that person, and I don't know